Hi, this is Chris from the Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from Political Voices Network.
Glenn, Dr. Jack Brown tweeted, allowing Trump to have press appearances outside the courtroom without giving the American people cameras inside the courtroom is a profound double standard. It lacks transparency, objectivity, fairness, and is destructive to democracy. We must have every trial of Trump continuously live streamed. Sherry Jacobus said the same. She said, we need the gag order on Trump enforced. We need cameras in the courtroom. Otherwise, voters see and hear only his dangerous press conference and rally rants and none of the information they need to see and hear.
Yeah, and it ultimately will come down to Chief Justice Roberts as head of the U.S. Judicial Conference, and I'm not wildly optimistic. I think I just saw NBC filed a motion to intervene seeking cameras in the federal courtrooms. I hope to heck we have cameras in there. Let me make a quick pitch. Yeah. There's something called the Crime Victims' Rights Act, the CVRA. One of the charges, count 4, in the indictment in D.C. says Donald Trump tried to defraud the American people out of our voting rights. That makes us statutorily crime victims. The Crime Victims' Rights Act, the federal law says we may not be excluded from the courtroom, but if there are not cameras in the courtroom, we will be excluded. That will violate the federal law. That is a sound legal argument in favor of cameras in the federal courtrooms, and I hope that that argument gains traction.
Yeah, but behind the scenes here, we were talking about what's going on behind the scenes in terms of state and federal cooperation. Jack Smith, Bonnie Willis, etc. What is your take on that? Because you were saying when you were a prosecutor, that happened all the time.
Yeah, I was a federal prosecutor in D.C. The little-known secret is we are also the local prosecutors in D.C. because D.C. isn't a state, so they don't have a district attorney's office. So we did it all. I had lots of multi-jurisdiction investigations and prosecutions with my fellow prosecutors, for example, across the river in Virginia, across the district line in Maryland. We would always coordinate closely, early and often, to make sure we were doing right by all jurisdictions when we were all prosecuting a defendant or a gang in common. I hope to heck, and I believe that the various prosecutors, Bragg, Willis, Smith, obviously, I hope they are all coordinating and doing what's right in an overarching sense. John and I were just talking about how Sidney Powell pleading guilty in Georgia almost certainly means she's already cooperating with Jack Smith and the federal prosecution in D.C. So I am hopeful that all of these prosecutors are cooperating and coordinating, which would not be improper. It would be the right thing to do.
I'm pretty convinced that it was decided that Alvin Bragg would go first. That was the test.
Take the maiden legal voyage, as Glenn Kirschner likes to say.
See how the protests are, see how if there's any violence or rioting. They saw it was very mild, and with each successive indictment, and there will be more,
that's why I love
lighter and lighter and lighter.
Yeah, when Trump says, the American people aren't going to stand for this.
It's going to be wild.
They are.
Going to be wild.
Doing this for you. I'm going to jail for you. I'm like, okay, deal.
No one's talked about the real loser of Jim Jordan's loserdom is Donald Trump. That's the Republican caucus saying no to Donald Trump's personal Renfield blood slave because they're not scared of him being president again in the Republican House. And the mainstream media is not talking about that at all. It's not a rejection of Jim Jordan, it's a rejection of Trump.
Oh, I love this show. I can't get enough of it. Per sources, Kevin McCarthy screamed at Matt Gaetz to sit down when he went to speak with McCarthy, allegedly lunging at Gaetz. There are serious issues happening in the U.S. and around the world. There are not serious people running the House of Representatives. It's fantastic.
Born for the angels.
By the way, Maureen is a liberal helper, Steph Head, Chris, and she says, stack Trump indictments up for McHenry to sit on. It's hard to find phone books these days. You know what? That's a sweet, sweet thought. Okay.
He needs a high chair.
Yes, he does. Maybe he needs a high chair. John, speaking of facts, you tweeted, because it wasn't a lib vaccine. 2, Trump repeatedly tried to take credit for it. 3, science has no political bias. 4, and we're not losing 3,000 American lives per day to COVID anymore.
I'm still getting those, Yeah,
I got in a fight with an anti-vaxxer on Twitter this week. I can't.
We're not losing a 9/11's worth of American lives every day anymore. Overall, the vaccines have worked.
Yeah, exactly.
Survey says.
People queuing up to talk to the boys. Hello, Michael in Oakland. You're on with Glenn and John. Hello.
Hi, I feel like I'm in Wayne's World on the air with Glenn Kirschner. I'm not worthy.
Michael is our pro bono lawyer in Oakland. Yes.
And I very much resemble that remark.
Yes.
Now, having said that, I'm curious. So, Glenn, I guess the standard rule. I'm talking about Sidney Powell, the Kraken lady, who's copped a plea and is obviously flipped. Isn't the old rule that the first one to squeal gets the best deal? Isn't that what's going on here? Probably.
Typically, yeah. Once we drop a big old indictment, ordinarily a conspiracy indictment, there is a race to the prosecutor's office to see who can be the first cooperator through the door, because all things being equal, that is the person who typically gets the best, deal, the best bang for their buck. And boy, she got a whole lot of benefit by going from life in prison with a mandatory 5 years for the RICO charge to being able to do probation. So I have a feeling her proffer of facts, meaning the evidence that she can provide against Donald Trump and Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, John Eastman, Jeffrey Clark, and the other co-conspirators, criminal associates in Georgia, I have a feeling what she brings to the table is spectacular.
Glenn, your take on this headline: Giuliani is absolutely dead after Sidney Powell flipped, according to one legal analyst. He said, not that he doesn't have enough trouble already, but this is the worst blow yet to him. She's got to be trouble for Trump and double trouble for Giuliani.
Yeah, Rudy's done. Rudy is done, and I predict he will never be a cooperating witness. Have you ever looked closely at Rudy? You have to close one eye, turn your head like
his
this.
His eyes are dead, like a dog's eye.
But if you look real closely, Steph, you see a whole bunch of little circular bruises on his, and it's really curious. But what that is nobody wants to touch him except with the end of a 10-foot pole. Because
Glenn Kirschner's doing material. What's going on?
Yeah. Because you can't clean him up and put him in front of a jury and urge a jury to believe him, because the Rudy stink will attach itself to the prosecutors.
Yeah.
So we will not put somebody like that on the stand. Where we will put him is in prison.
All right, Glenn's been doing jokes. Now I need some legal analysis from you, John.
I don't mean to be. I don't want to get too serious, but I want to tell your listeners I have started a GoFundMe campaign to try to get Rudy Giuliani's liver a human transplant. Please,
that's so
donate.
sweet.
Please,
See, liberal helpers everywhere.
Please find a new home for Rudy's liver before it's too late.
Do you think Reverend Al Sharpton can be prosecuted for urging the bartender at the cigar bar to put more booze and to make Rudy's drink stronger before he went on Fox News? I don't know if that's true, but it's funny.
I just think it's sad. Giuliani has fallen so far since Borat 2. We never knew. We never knew how good he looked back then.
All right, hang on. Breaking legal news here. God, I love talking about the penal code with John and Glenn. A New York judge has threatened Trump with serious sanctions for violating a gag order in his New York fraud lawsuit. This is Arthur Engoron. The former president was slapped with a gag order earlier this month, going after his clerk. The judge laid into Trump today after learning the post remained on his campaign website. Glenn, it's just, this always has the feeling, these judges, of like a parent in the ball crawl at Chuck E. Cheese just going, no, I said no, don't stop. And it's like, you have to be specific with him. No, not the clerk. No, not witnesses either. Like, you need to be very specific. No.
You're allowed to lie about the president, not attack us.
So here's the good thing about this apparent violation of Judge Engoron's gag order. Just as Judge Engoron was the first to impose a gag order, which I think made it atmospherically a little bit easier for Judge Chutkan to impose the second, more sweeping gag order. This first violation will be testing the waters. Believe me, Judge Engoron will impose sanctions. I suspect they will be money sanctions, which of course he'll just grift off his base. But again, atmospherically, Steph, it's going to make it easier for Judge Chutkan to impose the second round of sanctions, and they will be more severe, in my opinion, because the New York case is a civil case, the D.C. case is a criminal case, and those are different when it comes to sanctioning violations of judges' orders.
I just want to say, in Donald Trump's defense, he thought broad gag order meant when you pay the escort extra to make things a little rough.
There it is, my first drink of the day, Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic. Many of you know my story. I stopped drinking wine for 3 years during COVID, during the lockdown as part of a health reset. Now I drink wine in moderation, but this is an amazing new product. I've always believed in probiotics. And Z-Biotics, check this out. You drink just one of these. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. I am using this, and I feel great in the morning. I don't have to worry. If I have an extra glass of wine, I still feel great in the morning. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. I've always had acid reflux problems. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. All I know is it works. It is Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic. Go to zbiotics.com/politicalvoices or scan the QR code on the screen right now.